Hello, welcome to R'lyeh Expeditions. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I see as a problem with different settings is that we favour a villain over other villains. So, in particular, what I want to talk about is I was watching the Minions and Monsters trailer with Cthulhu, well, little baby Cthulhu. Um, and the first thing I thought of was, that's so cool. There's a Minions movie that has Cthulhu. Followed by, that's so cool. There's a Minions movie that has Cthulhu, but Cthulhu is cute. And that's what I think Cthulhu has as a problem in general. Cthulhu isn't cute. So I know that sounds probably like a bit of an oxymoron, but Cthulhu isn't cute. The thing that I find really interesting is the over the years we've had the cutification of Cthulhu. So that Cthulhu went for, and I think it's because of the design of Cthulhu. So you're talking about a large creature with, big bat like wings and tentacles and things, which is instantly recognizable. So the minute that you hear, it has an octopus head and has tentacles and has wings, you go, oh, that's Cthulhu. And because he's so recognizable, and probably also because he's in the public domain, he gets used for everything. Um, there is a running joke I heard in the board game scene, which is whatever board game with Cthulhu. And I think that that's a very obvious thing because of that. In a sense, that means that when you're running Call of Cthulhu, the one entity that you very rarely ever come across in Call of Cthulhu is Cthulhu. So, which makes it really interesting because you've got a whole game that's talking about Call of Cthulhu, and yet there's no Cthulhu, or very little Cthulhu. In fact, there's very little of the mythos outside of Nyarlathotep, or as we call him around here, Narly. And this is why I think that the Cthulhu mythos in the role playing game has got a Narly problem. A large number of the modules and the scenarios, and particularly the large campaigns, so thinking of Horror on the Orient Express and obviously Master of Nyarlathotep, is the center antagonist of it is Nyarlathotep. Now, I always say, I did ask this question. There is footage of this, of me asking this question at an AMA a couple of years ago, where I asked the question, why is it always Narly? Why is it always Nyarlathotep? And the answer I got was actually a really good answer, and I'm certainly going to paraphrase it here, so sorry, Mike, in advance. But Narly absolutely is the sort of that person or the sort of deity or the sort of mythos creature that does want to interfere, does want to actually interact with humans. When you're talking about other different types of the mythos, they very rarely want to they're happy to slumber in the depths of the ocean. They don't really want to, and don't have any need to, and don't have any concept of interacting with you. So I always say that Narly is absolutely the person who will F up your day. He will absolutely put salt in your coffee if he could, because that's just how Narly rolls. So when you're thinking about this, what I always think about is there a way of making something that is so indifferent to you and to us as humans, make that a scary? Because it's hard to make that scary. It's hard to make something that you don't necessarily think about in terms of its, it's not a big oogie boogie monster. It's not Godzilla coming out of the ocean to come and wreck Tokyo. So I think that there's been some recent thinking on this that has made it kind of interesting, and I kind of wanted to share that in a little bit of a discussion with you all. So the first thing is the Cthulhu mythos is so vast. There's so much there that there are videos, and I can absolutely point you in the direction of one of these videos should you wish it, that are 4 or 5 hours long talking about with a 30-second spiel about each one of these mythos creatures. So that it's very, very vast. It's huge in terms of the amount of information that's out there on the mythos. So yes, while it's very attractive to keep going back and again and again and again and again to the same well, to the Narly well, and keep drawing Narly because Narly wants to be there, it's really interesting when you come across a module or a series of modules or scenarios that don't involve Neferhotep, because it challenges the writer, but it also challenges the GM to run something really, really different. So let's start with Yog-Sothoth. There is a fantastic module called Mr. Corbett. It appears in the Mansions of Madness anthology of scenarios, where the antagonist is Yog-Sothoth. And it's not obvious that that's what it is, but obviously as a GM and you're reading it, sorry, spoilers for the module, but it is absolutely in the undercurrent, and it absolutely changes the way that the cultist actions, etc., really do work in this particular scenario. Talking about Mr. Corbett, though, I will put something out there for GMs to think about. There was a module released quite a number of years ago called the Dea, or known as Call of Cthulhu. Mr. Corbett is actually one of the best modules ever to actually adapt for Call of Cthulhu. So if you're ever looking for a module, if you played the Dea and you really want to try something else, Mr. Corbett is definitely the way to go. So that's my little hint there. Recently, though, the introduction of the Suitor of the Pale Leaves, so we're talking about Twin Suns Rising and the Carcosa Manifest. So we're talking about Hastur. So those who know me very well and have encountered me at conventions do know that Hastur is my jam. I have been called a Hastur maiden to my face. And the reason is I love the fact that Hastur, it's not the monster that kills you, it's the madness that he creates. So when you take it right back to its source material, and you just would have seen my yellow sign as I moved my arm then, the whole thing to bear in mind is that the madness that Hastur creates is actually what's interesting about Hastur. The influence that Yog-Sothoth has is what's interesting about Yog-Sothoth. The fear of what's in the woods is what's really fascinating about Shub-Niggurath. It's all of this stuff that is so much more fascinating, is the element and the atmosphere that you build with these mythos creatures rather than the creatures themselves. You don't encounter Hastur or Narly or Cthulhu and survive. Your characters don't survive that. Quite simply do not survive. You are trying to thwart whatever's happening to bring them into the world. You will not survive if you encounter Cthulhu. So the next time you're running your game, have a think about this, because I think it would be interesting to see, let's bring in different monsters, let's bring in different characters and work with things differently. It's one of those things that I have been playing with a lot when I've been creating new modules for myself, to go, okay, what's a creature or a monster that I don't see a lot of, and bringing that into your games. There's heaps and heaps of inspiration for all of these sorts of things. So the Shub-Niggurath storyline, a lot of folk horror, absolutely will lend itself to the Shub-Niggurath type story. I would recommend The Ritual, the movie on Netflix. It is absolutely fantastic. Yes, it's definitely not Shub-Niggurath, but it absolutely lends itself to that Wendigo type imagery. Absolutely can bring the Blake Goat with 1,000 Young into that. Obviously, Hastur, the best recommendation I can for that one is True Detective Season 1. Obviously talks about the Yellow King and the cult of Carcosa. Absolutely brilliant in terms of showing the influence of Hastur rather than Hastur himself. There's no Hastur in True Detective. So having said that, team, I'm going to leave it there for the day, but of course would absolutely love to talk about Cthulhu Mythos a lot more. especially the Neferhotep problem. Really do have a problem with that one. But as I remind people at the end of all my videos, we are trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year. I don't think that is an impossible task. It is probably a challenge, but not an impossible task. So if you like my video, please like it and subscribe. If you like my video and like what I'm talking about, please share this video with a friend. That's how we are going to book a much larger ship to get to the South Pacific. In the meantime, I'm looking forward to seeing you at my gaming table, or alternatively, being at yours. And I would love to know your thoughts about the Cthulhu mythos. Is Cthulhu too cute to be scary? Until next time, thanks for joining us on this journey. Bye.